Hello listeners, and welcome back to my podcast. Today I will be discussing the mental health benefits of mindfulness and the importance nutrition plays in mental health. Stay tuned to hear more. Mental health has, throughout times, always been treated differently than physical health. The Mental Health Foundation's website states mental and physical health should not be thought as separate since physical health can influence mental health and vice versa. An article published in the academic journal Scientific Reports states many physiological factors as well as mental health can be impaired by high stress levels. To gain some advice on good ways to lower stress levels, I spoke with Kyle Schindler, a counselor and director of MindSpa services at Texas Tech Student Counseling Center. Schindler said mindfulness is a good practice to adopt in order to de-stress.
So mindfulness is a tricky concept at first because it kind of is a few things at once. Mindfulness is active, present-focused orientation to the world. The active component is important. It's going to distinguish mindfulness from, say, sitting around watching TV and not thinking, right? That's passive participation in the present, right? That's just kind of blanking out. And then present focused means that you're not anxious about the future, you're not assessing and thinking about past actions. The present focus is also important, so active and present. When you're engaged in mindfulness, this sort of general idea is that when you're in the present, you're only a part of the present, and very rarely is the present moment itself stressful. It's usually future anticipations, it's usually future plans, or it's stress over past actions, past experiences, things like that. So very rarely is the present as stressful as the future or the past, and so a present-focused mindset is ideally lower stress.
Schindler then discussed how someone can practice mindfulness.
Ideally, your sensory experiences are a great way to tie into the present moment. One of the things that a lot of us do, and this is my favorite way to kind of notice it, eating food is typically a chore or a thing we got to get through before we get to the next thing, right? I got to eat and then I can go work out, or I've got to eat and then I got this project, or I'm going to eat and I'm going to watch TV while I'm doing it, or I'm going to work on this project, or I'm going to drive, right? Eating is typically something we're not very mindful of. But what you can do is you can actually sit down with a meal and you can really hone in on your sensory experiences. You can notice the taste and really pay attention to the taste in detail. Or you can notice that there are actually multiple smells for a lot of foods, or how it looks, how it feels in your hand, or how it feels in your mouth, things like that. In general, one of my favorite things to do is have people look around at their experiences and notice that they actually don't notice a lot of things. You can have people hone in on their surroundings. What's it like to just see things? What is it like to see colors? Or when you hear things, how often do you hear things that you're not actually paying attention to or that you've habituated to, right? The hum of a computer. Does your computer make a hum? It's one of those things that it's like it's always there, but we're very rarely paying attention to it because we're often kind of planning mode or something like that. Mindfulness, basically, it's very easy to get into that mode by just focusing on what's around you. Mindfulness, a mindful orientation to the world, is lower stress than a future-oriented perspective. There's a sort of a perspective that a lot of animals are lower stress than us because they don't have metacognition. They don't have the ability to plan for the future or to worry about the future, but we do. Stress in the moment isn't necessarily damaging, and a normative amount of stress, again, is like a balance. A normative amount of stress is beneficial because it is motivating. But when you get into a high level of stress, that can actually cause long-term health impacts. It can release hormones into the bloodstream that can damage the body long-term.
I also spoke with psychiatrist Dr. Astik Joshi to gain more insight on the practice of mindfulness and what it can do for someone's mental health.
There's no single medical definition for mindfulness. It's a concept beyond centuries and cultures. Basically, a modern definition of mindfulness would be being in here and now and not being in the future, or not being distressed by anything, just being at peace with yourself. Simply put, it's the absence of thoughts, which is mindfulness. You do nothing, that's mindfulness. All you have to do is do nothing. It can do a lot of good to your mental health, especially if somebody is in distress. Mindfulness is one of those moments of respite. If you can practice it and if you can master it, it gives you those moments where you're not mentally distressed and you're mentally at peace. A lot of times with mental health problems, people are not at peace. They're overthinking, they're overanalyzing. And mindfulness kind of gets your brain to a calmer, peaceful state.
Allison Childress, a registered dietitian and assistant professor in the Nutritional Sciences department at Texas Tech, spoke with me to talk about the role of nutrition in mental health.
There's two problems. People either downplay the role of nutrition in mental health or they don't fully understand it. So I think a lot of times people are looking for certain foods or certain nutrients that will help in their mental health when there's really not any identified foods that are good for mental health. What is good for mental health is an overall good, healthy, varied diet. So a diet that includes fruits and vegetables, lean meats, healthy fats. It's basically an overall diet that's so important for mental health. And I think instead of looking for a quick fix or instead of looking for a food or two that you could eat to help mental health, it's important that you focus on the entire picture of your diet and not just a few aspects of it.
Childress went on to talk about what kind of diet a person should adopt to help aid mental health.
Through research, one of the most recommended, I guess if you're going to call it a diet or a way of eating for mental health, is actually the Mediterranean diet. We've seen a lot of promise in research with the Mediterranean diet on mental health, and we think that that might be because of the emphasis on fruits and vegetables and lean meats, and especially the fruits and vegetables and how they relate to our gut bacteria. So, serotonin is an important chemical that regulates mood. And what we know is that the gut actually produces 95% of our serotonin. And their serotonin is actually produced by the bacteria in the gut. And so if we can feed those bacteria well and keep our gut populated with those good bacteria, we can improve mental health that way. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. And it's really a holistic look at your diet and mental health and not just a few things. Because, if you continue to feed your GI tract with a bunch of junk, then you're not going to have the optimal benefit of that gut bacteria and how it can help with serotonin levels.
Nutrient deficiencies are something that Childress said can be detrimental to mental health.
So a lot of times people are deficient in certain vitamins and minerals and they don't know that. So I do think it's important to get a good lab workup, especially a vitamin D, because we know vitamin D there's a lot of people who are deficient in D, and a deficiency in D can have some effects on mood. So getting a vitamin D checked and just making sure there's no deficiencies to begin with. And then if you're not deficient in anything and you don't have to replace anything, then really changing and switching your diet to a good plant-based, lean meat-based, varied diet is probably the best way to go. I think one thing to be mindful of is a lot of times in mental health, structure and stability help keep people on track. And having a diet that is structured and stable, like the Mediterranean diet, can help in mental health indirectly. So directly you're helping because you're getting good nutrition and it's varied and you're probably meeting all of your needs with that, but you're also creating a lifestyle and a habit and a structure for yourself daily that can help maintain that mental health too. So you're not worrying about what to eat or when to eat, or you're not having to stress about being frazzled because of that. And so I think just the overall practice of healthy eating can help in mental health as well.
As you've just heard, nutrition and diet can play a big role in how mentally healthy an individual is. Mindfulness is also something that can benefit an individual and help better their mental health. Thanks for listening, and a big thank you to Kyle Schindler, Dr. Astik Joshi, and Allison Childress. Tune in next time!